Okay, AI isn't just a passing fad. It could be here to stay. That's according to a new note out from Morgan Stanley today. Yahoo Finance's Dan Howley joins us now on this conversation. Dan, what's in the note? What's the key takeaway here?
So there's a few things. The main thing is that it looks like this kind of AI that we're seeing is going to be around for quite some time. The big headlines that we've talked about, the Microsoft Bing, the Google Bard, those types of technologies seem to be as though we'll see them for quite some time now. I've been actually using Bing. I'm going to have a piece coming out tomorrow about what it's like, but it's been pretty interesting so far. According to this note, though, there are a few downsides to this kind of technology, and that is that according to their tech, telecom, and media, or tech, media, and telecom team, the cost per query is 7 times higher when you're using these kinds of AI technologies versus a standard algorithmically driven search engine. And that's just because it's going to generate, their generative AIs, an answer for you, and they have to pull out from a ton of different sources. And so that could be a problem for upstarts, but not these big incumbent companies. They also point to the fact that it looks as though some venture capital companies or venture capital firms are moving away from funding the smaller upstarts just because we have these huge firms like Microsoft, like Google, pushing into them, but they are conversely going into the safety area and the moderation area where you provide safety, provide moderation for these platforms, so you don't end up with some absolutely wild stuff getting through that they say is true. For
the casual observer here, Dan, people have said metaverse is going to change the world, right? And then it was Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain is going to change the world, and then it came all these collapses. So those people are feeling a little bit burned. Why is this different inherently?
So, okay, so there's two things. This it feels as though it's going to be a add-on feature. It is not the end-all be-all of search, right? It's something Microsoft purposely puts it on the right side of the screen in Bing. There's also this idea of the trough of disillusionment, where you go into this kind of new type of technology, and everything is about the projections of what it's eventually going to do. And they're all outrageous, through the roof, but it takes time to get to those points. That's the idea. The metaverse, VR, things like that. Everybody's like, well, we're going to be walking around in like VR bodysuits and, floating in like a virtual Mars or something. The reality is that takes forever. So you go into this trough of disillusionment where everybody kind of just sours on the technology, and eventually we start to see some kind of gains and get to the point where, those projections were. This, though, isn't necessarily dealing with that same problem. Those other technologies for sure are.
Google got hammered yesterday on this seemingly minor mistake that was actually a part of a pre-produced ad, which is shocking for a company that spends that much on advertising. But it's getting hammered again. Is it much ado about nothing, or is that a big problem for Bard as they roll this thing out?
I think they really screwed up on the advertising there. That was a big message. Basically, what they said was, people were pointing out that the way the sentence was framed was that it seemed inaccurate. It wasn't that it was the first photo taken of an exoplanet. It was of a particular. So it was the syntax of the sentence, right? It's not that it was wrong. It's just that it was framed in a way that you can interpret it wrong. I just think that Bing right now has the momentum. Bard doesn't seem like it's going to be doing much that's too different. Bing is really going completely different direction, and it's really interesting.